In this video, I'm going to teach you how to install new RAM memory in a laptop and show you how to check that it's working correctly. Let's go. For this video, I'm going to use the Asus S510U VivoBook. It's a very well-built machine and is a good example of what most laptops' internals look like. However, before we start taking it apart, I'm going to use this anti-static mat with the magnetic header. A mat like this is perfect as it helps me keep track of the screws and helps prevent static shock, which could damage the internals. I'm going to start with a Phillips screwdriver bit from Bonafide Hardware. I found that rubbing it on a strong magnet beforehand helps prevent losing screws. To take off a back panel, I'll need to remove the screws around this outside edge. There are also 2 screws in the middle, as well as screws underneath the support pegs. A layout like this with screws around the outside edge as well as some in the middle or underneath the pegs is a very common setup. Sometimes screws will be under a sticker that voids the warranty if punctured, so watch for those. To remove the screws underneath the pegs, I switch the screwdriver to a flathead bit, then carefully pull off the pegs. Underneath there will be screws. Generally these are quite longer than the other ones. Finally, I take a plastic non-marking spudger and go around the outside edge to pry off the cover. Now let's go through the internals of a computer. This is a hard disk drive. It physically spins around and can make a lot of noise. These 3 black squares are the battery. On the right side, you can see the USB ports, which are connected to the motherboard by this cable. This is the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth card, and these black and white cables are the antennae. Next is a cooling fan and the heat sink chamber. It runs down and connects to the CPU. And these are the RAM slots. There's currently only 1 stick of RAM, and this rectangle space here is for an M.2 solid state drive. Now to exchange out the RAM, all I do is pull outwards on the metal tabs on the side. The RAM will eject upwards and I slide it out. This is a single 8 gig stick. The 2400T tells me it has 2400 megatransfers per second and a clock rate of 300 megahertz. I'm going to replace that single stick with 16 gigs of Samsung memory. This is double the memory, and Samsung is a very reliable brand. To install it, I line it up with the off-center notch and slide it in at an angle. Push it down and it clicks in place. I repeat the same process for the other stick. It mirrors it so it goes the other direction. Slide it in at an angle and push it down. Most laptops nowadays will use GDDR5 or DDR4 RAM, so do your research on compatibility. That's all it takes to install it. I'm going to speed things up to put it back together. Alright, with the computer put back together, I'm going to show you now how to check to make sure your RAM is working correctly. The first thing to do is power on the computer. I did not receive an error message and it booted up just fine. That means it installed correctly. Once the computer has booted up, open a new window and go to this PC or my computer. Right click and go to Properties. It will then open up a new window and give you basic information about your computer, as this title accurately declares. You can see on this line it tells me the processor, and just below it, it tells me I now have 16 gigs of RAM. Another more detailed way to check if your RAM is working is to open the Windows Start menu and type in Task Manager. This will bring up a list that shows all the different apps and programs that are running on your computer. If you click the Performance tab, it will show you your CPU usage and next your memory. Your memory is not your hard disk drive storage, but is instead the random access memory, or RAM. You can see here on the bottom that 4 gigs or about 28% is being used. Now it does look like there's some discrepancy as I installed 2666 MHz of RAM. We'll check on that, but first click on the Open Resource Monitor button. This is an even more detailed account of your system memory. It allows you to see the cache memory and total available. It will also make you look smarter if you turn it on when someone's walking by your desk. Finally, I'll show you an even more detailed way to check your system memory. Open the Windows Start and type in CMD. Type in the letters CMD opens up the Windows Command Prompt. Windows Command Prompt, among other things, will give you access to certain files and applications that are not available in regular desktop windows. For example, here I'm going to type in WMIC, which stands for Windows Management Instrumentation Command Line. Then calling the memory chip, I'm going to get the device locator, the memory type, the capacity, speed, blank label, and type detail. In other words, I'm asking the computer to give me details about the memory or the RAM. Looking closer, You can see here, bank label 0 and bank 2 are the slots where the RAM is installed. The capacity is 8 gigs. Device locator is another name which the computer gives the RAM slots. Memory type 0 means it's unknown. Now counter to the task manager, the speed is actually 2666 rounded up. Type detail gives you info such as if it's synchronous or not. Typing CLS enter will clear the screen. And now I'm good to close out all my windows. Alright, that was a lot to take in, but I hope it gave you confidence to try new things on your computer. Hopefully this saved you some time and money, and most importantly, allow you to help someone else. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.